Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I am a huge fan of cars used in old British TV series filmed between the late 1950s and late 1990s. Join me on a journey as we look back on over 40 years of British television and its relationship with the automobile. I made a selection of videos last year talking about a lot of these series, and I'm doing it again to make them even better. You know, sometimes I really don't know why I bother. The last time we covered anything, we looked at bugs, and I thought it would be a fantastic idea to cover a show that is associated with bugs, made by Carnival Films, about the same time as that series, and even some of the directors of Bugs are exactly the same as Crime Traveller. But having watched a couple of episodes in the last couple of days, I apologise to all of you in advance. I'm not going to spend very long on this at all. So Crime Traveller was broadcast for one series only in the spring of 1997. It starred Michael French as Jeff Slade, Chloe Annett as Holly Turner, Sue Johnston is their boss, effectively, in the police. She's assisted by two other officers who are called Morris and Nikki. And the other character is the caretaker at Holly Turner's place, Sundown Court. And really, that's a lot of what you need to know about it. The series is really just a cross between Doctor Who and Midsummer Murders, if you can believe that. And it's scripted by Anthony Horowitz, who, I mean, was quite a big name at the time. I mean, he's written all kinds of things like the Alex Rider series. He's written two Sherlock Holmes novels. He's written some episodes of some quite famous TV series. And yet, Crime Traveller just basically looks really interesting because it is about time travel. There is a way that you're able to time travel in it, using the flat and the equipment that Holly Turner's father left behind, to create your own kind of little TARDIS. But it's just not that interesting. I don't know why I even bother watching it. It's a lot more interesting, really, in concept than it is in execution. So the idea is that Holly Turner's father has created this time machine using bits and pieces that he got, and he told her about it, and then he got stuck in an endless time loop. And now she's the only one who can operate it. She's a forensic scientist for the police force, and on one particular occasion, she decides to help out one of her colleagues, Jeff Slade, who is a bit of a renegade, of course, to help solve a crime by going back a certain amount of time. The time comes at random. It's between 3 hours and a week. Every single time you operate it, you don't really have a lot of control over it. Or in the last episode, you find out there is a way to control it, but they don't know that. And her father got stuck in a time loop because he didn't come back in time from when he left, if that makes sense. So you have this little watch device that you can see how long you've got left before, you know, you get stuck in a time loop, and he didn't pay attention, so that's what happened. So they use the time machine number flat to go back and see, you know, what actually happened during the course of various slightly uninteresting crimes. And there's some cars in them, although the cars, unfortunately, are not particularly interesting, apart from to somebody like me. So I suppose that's a bit of a warning for you. You saw the title sequence, you saw what that was like. That really kind of sums up what this series is like. Because we're dealing with a series that lasted only 8 episodes, there's not an awful lot of cars for me to talk about. The main car that Holly Turner has, Chloe Annett, who you know from Red Dwarf, is a 1993 Peugeot 306 XSI to 2 litre. It's a very early model, actually, although it's not a press car or anything. K699BJO. Now, Michael French, Jeff Slade, he has a number of cars, although the main one that you see is a 1996 Vauxhall Vectra. Vauxhall, I think, provided various press cars for the series, which isn't unusual, really. The main one being a 2.5 litre V6 CDX Vectra, N530GRO, which that's a Luton plate, actually, so that makes perfect sense. There are others as well that we'll come on to in a bit, including a particular favourite of mine that I'm sure you'll understand. In the first episode, he chases a motorbike from Reading Station, although it's not called Reading Station in the episode. It is definitely Reading Station, because I remember at the time it used to look like that. I used to travel from there fairly regularly, actually, so it was interesting seeing that. And then, you know, this chase taking part of the town centre of Reading. We'll go on to some of the other cars used in it, but the car the villain uses is a 1988 BMW 318i F254ENA, which actually lasted until 2012. So I presume when they throw a car from a multi-storey car park into the canal below, that is probably a different car. In episode 8, there's a BMW 320 E36 with false plates on it, 92 model. That's not particularly interesting, really, unless you're Matt from Matt's Beamer, in which case I'm sure you'll love it. Then in the same episode, the last episode of the series, something a bit more to my taste, it's a 1969 Bristol 410, CYY191G. Bristol 410 was before the 411, of course, which came a bit later. Now, in the first episode, one of the main things that happens, actually, is there's a crash with a Ford Capri. It's a very late Ford Capri, actually. It's a deregistered one, and it's a 2 litre laser. I will be getting a Capri laser on my channel at some stage. That has been on the cards now for almost a year, and there's just been various things going on at the moment. And, of course, in our current situation, I'm not allowed to travel, and neither is the owner, so we won't be seeing that for a while. But nevertheless, this one, D331RFV, it's a very late one, so it's an 86-87 model. Of course, the production finished December 86, I think. That crashes into a bollard. I presume that that's not seen again, which it isn't. It's a bit of a shame, really. I mean, you know, Capris are always interesting to see. Continuing down the sort of cars you don't really see anymore, which is probably the most interesting thing about Crime Traveller, spotting cars you don't see much anymore. There's a lovely 1996 Ford Mondeo 2.5 Gear X in episode 6. It's N458LGO, And the main car that Sue Johnston's character uses, I mean, she's one of the best things about the series, to be honest, Sue Johnston. I think she's fantastic. It's a 1996 Ford Scorpio 2.9 24-valve Ultima. It's a pre-facelift one, obviously. The facelift didn't come in until 98, and this series was filmed in 1996, so it's a sort of ugly one. Not that the next one's not ugly, but this is the more ugly one. N106 MGO. I suspect a Ford dealer, I think, yeah, there's a Ford dealer that used to provide Ford effectively press cars, but not from the Ford factory in the 1990s. I suspect those have come from that. In episode 3, there is a car that gets blown up. Obviously, this is, the same team as Bugs, and so they love blowing cars up. It's not a Rover, though. It's a 1990 Jaguar Sovereign 4-litre H2H6 GPD. Unfortunately, they also do like getting rid of Rovers, and I hate to say this, but the car that they get rid of is an R8. I'm sorry. I don't agree with just trashing R8s for no reason. This is my second R8 that I've had, as many of you know, and I wasn't happy to see this. So it's a 1993 Rover 214 SI. In the second episode, K162VJX, and it gets crashed into a Vauxhall Astra Mark II, which has just been stolen from the police station, bizarrely. Although at the time, Mark II Astras were the car that got stolen. They had such bad security in the 1990s. There's a Mark III Astra, though, as well, in the 6th episode. There's a similar one in the first one as well, but the one in the 6th episode you see a bit more. It's a very basic one. It's a 1.4 Merit N196 GKX. By the Mark IIIs, they had a bit better security, and this is a post-facelift one, so it'd be even better. Another Vectra, not surprising really. They had a lot of Vectras that I think Vauxhall were learning them for this series. One of them is a 2-litre CDX Vectra, again 96 P350NNK. I mean, it's really just kind of the fact that you don't see these cars much anymore, rather than that they're particularly interesting cars, if that makes sense. One vehicle I saw and I pretty much forgotten about was a Nissan Cabstar, which actually appears in one of these police screens, just for fake police screeners. The car's actually being scrutinized for some reason. That's in the 6th episode, D203 NVS. VS is a Luton plate, funny enough. It's not a Scottish one. So yes, 987 Nissan Cabstar. I can't remember the last time I saw one of those. Another car that you don't see very many of, this is one of the first that is in that police chase in Reading that I was mentioning earlier on from the beginning of the first episode, is a 1986 Talbot Solara Rapier. The Rapier was the top of the line Solara in the last year of production, which would have been 1985-1986. So this is a very late car, a C247 VLE. And then at the taxi rank at the front of the station, you do see a crash between a Cavalier and a Sierra. Obviously, they were pretty heavy rivals at the time. And one's an 86 Cavalier. It's a CD, so it's a luxury one. The one behind it crashes into a 1984 Sierra Gear 2-litre. Obviously, those were just chosen because they were cheap and they could be written off. There's an Orion that crashes as well, but I won't show that. Another taxi that turns up in episode 4 is a 1986 Toyota Carina 2. Again, a car which I remember from my youth, but you just don't see those anymore at all. One thing that I did consider to be quite a highlight was a 1985 Ford Granada Mark II 2-litre injection gear X. It's a very late one, a post-facelift, last year of production, on a B plate, B886 LPG. Now that's wearing alloy wheels from a 2.9 Granada Mark III post facelift, because they do just fit straight on. which is interesting. The original T-Rex or gear wheels on a Mark II Granada, it's very hard to find tyres for those now, so they tend to have Mark III Granada wheels on them, and this is no exception. The last thing I'll mention is the fact that we see two rascals, you know, the Bedford and Vauxhalls. One's a Bedford, one's a Vauxhall. I'll just show you a picture of both of them because, again, you don't see many of those around. Those were laundry vans when I was at boarding school, actually. They used to nip around the school and it was fantastic, but you just don't see many of those anymore. So there we go. Somewhat disappointing episode, I'm afraid, viewers, and you know, you're not the only person who's disappointed if you're watching this, because Crime Traveller's probably not worth looking at. It's a real curio for people who might be fans of Bugs or might have been missing Doctor Who in the 1990s because it wasn't broadcast at all, apart from the weird film that was made in 1996. So, you know, real kind of curio, and it would have been interesting to see if they'd made more of them. I think Anthony Horowitz said that they were going to make more of them, but they just didn't get around to it for some reason. So, yeah, as it is, there's just not really much to separate it from watching Doctor Who or Bugs or Midsummer Murders separately. It's just not quite enough to be interesting. So there we go. Wonderful, incisive conclusions. Not really. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more of the same. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below. If you watched Crime Traveller at the time, I'd be particularly interested to hear from you. And don't forget to visit my Instagram page, Lloyd's Vehicle Consulting, and my Facebook page, www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching. Next time, hopefully, we'll be back with something a bit more interesting.